Joining me now with more on this, David Nakamura, the White House correspondent for The Washington Post. Eliana Johnson is Washington editor of National Review. Thanks for being here, both of you. Eliana, let's start with you. You say there's sort of a bigger issue, bigger picture issue up for grabs here, not so much about the number of emails and how many and to whom they were written.
That's right. I mean, we all know that the Clintons don't play by the same rules as everybody else. That's what the 90s were about. But this is a scandal of a different nature than Filegate or Travelgate or Whitewater. This is about Hillary Clinton taking a part of the U.S. government and conducting government business out of her own home under a veil of secrecy, of privacy, and without transparency. And that raises really significant and perhaps constitutional questions. When is the last time that happened? That was Iran-Contra during the Reagan administration, when national security affairs were being conducted under a veil of secrecy in a basement in the executive office building, and 14 people were indicted. And
David, you know, it goes back to some of the between then candidates Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Some of those difficulties were never erased. Now you've got the White House sort of trying to defend its former Secretary of State.
That's right. Until yesterday, when Secretary Clinton came out and finally faced the press, it was the White House that was taking the brunt of the questions and trying to keep the president at a remove from it. And this is going to be a continuing storyline as Hillary Clinton launches her campaign, her likely campaign. She's already taken a number of Obama aides onto her, would-be campaign structure. And as they sort of try to deal with the fallout of this, it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with the White House staff that is still there. And I think, another issue for Secretary Clinton is that her time at the State Department was supposed to be a key part of her resume for higher office. She was, international relations and diplomacy, and this could tarnish a lot of her argument on that.
Karen Tumulty from the Post wrote a piece about this, and the opening sentence is kind of interesting, Eliana. She says, the circus is back in town. Lots of old questions are being dragged up once again.
Absolutely. That's why we're seeing James Carville back on the air, Lanny Davis back on the air defending the Clintons. It's all of the old faces and a lot of the old issues. But again, I really think this scandal is much more significant than whether Bill Clinton was fooling around with an intern in the Oval Office or what happened to the White House travel staff. This raises really important questions, and that's why this scandal is of another level, and I think will continue to dog Hillary Clinton if Trey Gowdy is serious and that committee plans on pursuing it, because I don't think Americans are okay with a portion of the government being privatized and run out of Hillary Clinton's home.
And if she wanted to give everybody complete access, she could let archivists inspect those servers at her home, David, right?
She could. She said specifically yesterday that she's not going to allow that to happen. She said these servers were protected by Secret Service, which doesn't necessarily protect it, of course, from being hacked. And I think, the idea of letting, sort of outside experts come in and look at her servers and sort of see if they can resurrect these emails that may have been destroyed already is something that would open up, I think, to the Clinton camp a whole other set of problems. And whether it's revealing her yoga routines with her daughter or something more serious, I think, is to be determined. But for her, I think the bigger question, though, for her is openness. This is an administration, the Obama administration, that's talked about trying to be open and transparent. So this is a sort of a, black mark on both of them if this continues to be a problem.
David and Eliana, stick with us for just a minute. We'd like to get both of your reactions to this next report. Health and Human Services Secretary Sylvia Burwell making remarks today at a health policy conference about building up a long-term health care system in America, even as Republicans look for an alternative to Obamacare. And potential GOP candidates from Jeb Bush to Texas Senator Ted Cruz are weighing in. Senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel joins us from Washington now with more on that. Mike.
Well, John, it's only March 2015, and already several likely presidential hopefuls are saying Obamacare is a failure and must go.
Seeing millions of Americans who've lost their jobs, who've been forced into part-time work, who've lost their health care, who've lost their doctor, we need to repeal it and start over.
It has to be repealed, and it has to be replaced with something that allows every single American to buy the health care coverage that they want at a price they can afford from any company in America and any state in the country that's willing to sell it to you.
In Iowa over the weekend, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush said much of health care should be shifted back to individual choice, except when disaster strikes.
The effort by the state, by the government, ought to be to try to create catastrophic coverage where there is relief in families in this country, that if you have a hardship that goes way beyond your means of paying for it, the government is there or an entity is there to help you deal with that.
Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker is already getting asked what he'll do if the Supreme Court throws out Obamacare subsidies. Walker says it's up to Washington to fix this federal law. It is possible 185,000 Wisconsinites could lose their federal subsidies. Meanwhile, administration officials haven't wanted to talk about Plan B and say Obamacare offers choice and better options.
The Affordable Care Act's working, and consumers don't want these benefits taken away. Numbers and statistics are important, but behind them are the real lives that have been changed.
The reality for Republicans is they aren't getting President Obama to sign an Obamacare replacement, but if there is a GOP president in 2017, voters will want to know repair or replace and how that candidate would do it. John?
All right. Mike Emanuel in Washington. Mike, thank you. Let's bring back David and Eliana. David, you know, I was struck in the King versus Burwell arguing in front of the Supreme Court. One of the administration's points seemed to be, hey, you know, even if you find this illegal or unconstitutional, you can't undo it because we've got too many people signed up.
That's absolutely been one of the administration's strategies here to sort of implement this and sort of enshrine it, and not just for the legal argument, but for the political argument. Sign up as many people as possible, you know, and try to get them to, you know, sort of rely on this coverage, make it more difficult politically for Republicans to try to overturn it legislatively, and make it more difficult for the court, which does take into account sort of the real-life ramifications of their decision to overturn it legally. And so that's the administration's argument. We don't really have a backup plan. This is working. It could hurt folks in red states, maybe even more than in blue states, because they rely more on these subsidies in some of these, you know, Republican-dominated states. So that's the argument they're making. Whether, you know, sort of looks closely at that or not is to be determined, but I think the administration's sort of all in on this.
So there have been many Republicans, Eliana, in Congress who've been saying, okay, we, that is Republican members of Congress, have to come up with an alternative to Obamacare. Now they're even backing away from that, but I guess for political reasons. Can you explain?
That's right. Look, the administration wants people to lose their health care plans if King v. Burwell is overturned, and because they can point to Republicans and say, look, it's these guys' fault. They wanted King v. Burwell to go this way, and it did. So Republicans are facing the question whether to unite behind a replacement to Obamacare that Obama is unlikely to sign, or to do something else. And they've chosen the second route, which is to I think that you'll see them unite behind a COBRA-like plan for the next 18 months. And why 18 months? 18 months is the time it will take for the Republicans to coalesce behind a nominee for president. And then the burden will fall on the Republican nominee to put forward a plan that the entire party can unite behind. So the burden will fall not on the Senate majority, not on the House, but on the Republican nominee for president. And you're going to see a plan that buys from the Senate. Senator Ben Sasse put one forward that buys them time to do that.
All right. Eliana Johnson, David Nakamura. Good discussion. Thank you both.
Thanks,
John.
Some big topics covered there. We also have another big story to watch today. The president's top foreign policy and military advisors facing tough questions on Capitol Hill about ISIS and a whole host of other topics. But on ISIS, what they're saying about the administration's plan to defeat the terror group as Iraqi forces now battle ISIS for the key stronghold of Tikrit. Also, police scouring the countryside after thieves pull off a multi-million-dollar heist on the side of a road. And we want to hear from you. Do you think Hillary Clinton's news conference will allow her to turn the page on the email controversy? Our live chat is up and running. Just go to foxnews.com/happeningnow and click on America's Asking to join the conversation.